from this entire back wall had nothing.
It was there.
It was where you see the original tin is where the original woodwork is.
Okay.
But when they added this wall and there was all the way to the floor and all of the trim that they used was just flat stock pine. So it had none of the rosettes or the detail or anything like that. So the idea behind this is to get the seating set up and to reclaim. One of the projects is to reclaim the stage by taking out that makeshift storage room in hopes of being able to utilize the stage for a few town functions here and there and sort of restore that. So we did the front half of it to the curtain. They actually repolyed the floor and things like that. So the hope is that with the new offices downstairs, one of the offices is attached to the server room. Josh is going to be going down into that office because he wanted to be obviously next to the server. This office over here will become a second floor restroom, which we don't currently have for the meeting room. And then one of the other ideas is the current men's room is really rough shape. We did redo the female restroom into 2 handicap restrooms downstairs. The idea is to, now that those are operational, once we have the second floor bathroom operational, is to demo the men's room and to actually enlarge right now the employees don't have a break room in this building. We have that little kitchen, but they don't actually have somewhere where they can eat their lunch out of the view of the public, which makes it very difficult for anybody who's got an office that faces, a customer counter dealing with the public to be able to actually eat something with uninterrupted. So the other idea is to take, once the second floor bathroom is up and running, is to break out that demo the men's room for to enlarge that kitchen area to incorporate a small table for a break room. And one other idea, and again, these are so many ideas that are items to tackle. I didn't mean to necessarily give you the impression I'm trying to do all of these in this year. I'm going to see what we can do and where the money takes us, but obviously this is like long-term ideas.
Okay, so an example of the concerns. In our 2023 budget that we had for administration, it was $40,000. This is the old plan. Okay. But it appears that you spent about 90,000. At least that's what Jessica's telling us. Okay, in 2023. Just telling you what it.
On mine, I'm seeing 57,992. 90,000 was the deposit into the CRF.
This is the
Right. Yeah. 90,000 went in last year.
I think I can clear up some of this because it's always been my position that on this board, we're not here to approve a purchase. We're not here to approve a project. If we want to put a bathroom in the second floor, as far as I'm concerned, it's got no business at this level for
You have
approval.
no business with it. I'm just saying what the spend was.
No, for sure. And I think I'm just trying to circle back to where I think this request is going is unlike a lot of the other CRFs, there is planned projects with execution dates versus with this, there is not. So it's difficult for us to say, because usually we start with the dollar amount and then we go to the expense and then we plot out how much money over that time. But it looks like it's like 90, 60, 30, 30, 30, 30 as the appropriation, but there's no expense on that. So from our perspective with this plan, it just looks like it's building with no expense. So I think that's where a lot of the question came from in terms of like what the projects are. So that way we can just plot those expenses through.
Mm-hmm. And let me clarify one thing about the 90 grand. So the 90 grand was what we put in this year. And I will tell you that got increased by the Board of Selectmen after my meeting with you folks. And I'll tell you why. That was a specific situation. If you recall, we had a declared natural disaster in December. Was that hellacious rainstorm we got with that driving rain?
Yes.
Well, what ended up happening is every single window on the left side of the building leaked like a sieve. We had water damage in almost every office downstairs, the Heike room, the offices up here. It came pouring in. So they added the extra money to do some exterior work on this building to fix and preserve those problems that they weren't known until obviously it doesn't happen when when a normal rainfall came. It was that driving rain, but it went right through those windows, through all the edges of the windows. So the hope is that we're going to be able to contract that work. Whether I can get it done before the weather gets too cold or not, I don't know, but we will be under contract before that.
Okay.
But that's where that extra, so there was a $40,000 request. That was the
Yes.
original 40 that came in front of the board. The 50 was a rough estimate that we got from the brick mason about repointing and fixing some of the exteriors around there. And that was a last minute, hey, after the storm, this is what we found out.
Yeah.
And came
Okay.
forward. So
Any more questions for Ryan?
So where does the 60,000?
He just explained what he was looking to do. No, the 60,000.
yeah, I was talking about it. I went through the demo of the men's room to the break room. The second floor restroom when IT moves down to the new offices downstairs. The reclaiming of the
This is
storage
all
area.
good stuff, Raj.
The other one is the Heike room. We have repairs planned for the Heike room, painting, but also a filing system idea. That's going to eliminate those filing cabinets.
Do we need to do all of this year?
No, absolutely. These are projects that have been discussed and have a little bit of endorsement. They're not approved yet completely. The other thing, the raised planter thing issue is, as you know, when we remove the condensers out here, we have some erosion issues on this side of the sidewalk. But if you look and you go by the ramp had some granite pieces up underneath it, but it's such a steep slope
Mhm.
to the curb
Mhm.
that the underside of the ramp is exposed now. So there's nothing holding that back. So the idea was to pull the curbing and do a stepped brick planter along there so that we can raise the aggregate to back up that ramp.
Okay,
But no, these are not things we're going to all do this year. We don't have to do them all. These are ideas and projects to forgo.
Need to do it this year. What needs to get done? When does it need to get done? That's how we.
And well, I'll tell you, that we're dealing with this
in
building.
some respects, Roger, that's not our rule. Okay. We just need to give them the money to do some of these things, okay, or suggest how we're going to do it. So I think the committee will just have to evaluate what Ryan is looking for and how we're going to suggest that it should be paid for, you know. I think that's all we can do. I think it's all we can do is recommend that same thing to every department head. You know, this was your ask. But, you know, would you consider buying a used truck? Would you consider leasing something, so that we don't have a 60% increase in the CPI? CIP?
I think what Roger's getting at is kind of what I had said initially, was that with the town government administration CRF, there are no projects listed, so we can't put expenditure dates. So we don't know when to expense out the dollar amount. So
Well, the
while
building capital reserves, that's the intent behind it.
sure. And honestly, there are no real other departments in here that have a functioning building capital reserve fund. Like, there are not a lot of projects planned on the building side because we pumped the brakes on all of that because there was a lot of talks on building replacement. And 2 or 3 years ago, I had brought to this group that, hey, I think we have vehicles and equipment under control, but we have a lot of liability in buildings and we really need to look into that. And that's what prompted the master plan and a lot of that. So I think we need to figure out how we're going to look at building improvements on the building CIP side of it and how we're going to put those projects in, because I don't think we could itemize a second floor bathroom, a south side window replacement, a raised planter. Like if we started putting all of those things on here, I mean, this might get, 30, 40 lines long. So if the intent is that it's a $60,000 appropriation next year and they plan on expending that entire 60, then we just need to move that number up, but just have it in the backup documents, I would think. Because right now, I know what he's saying, because there's no expenses on here. So it just builds and builds and builds. And at the end, there's $242,000 with no plans for expenses. So if the idea is that we're going to spend that 60 next year, we just need to move it up to the expense line. So that way we know when it's going.
Yeah, the idea is that to utilize the building capital reserve to do the repairs and the upgrades needed so that we don't have to do a building replacement or a total building rehab. But I see what you're saying completely. But that is the issue that we ran into, is that we didn't for many, many years, just like we didn't do with vehicles. Every single building has a capital reserve, but they were never continually funded. Which the idea behind the capital reserve for the building is to continually fund it, so that when the heating system goes, you can replace it. When the roof goes, you can replace it. And all that's been happening in a lot of other buildings within the town, and it's been a struggle for them to be able to repair them. And obviously the highway department and the fire department being the most in desperate need of building replacements and things of that nature, which that is still in the process. We still have a consulting firm and architectural designer working on the plans for DPW, fire, or a public safety building, if that seems to be it, but that's still in the works right now.
Okay.
But I don't think this is a good year to be proposing a bond. So we have engaged in discussions and planning, and we're making it a good plan for possibly next year in 2024.
Any more questions for Brian?
I just want to be clear. So it's safe to say that the appropriations to the building capital reserve fund will be expended in that year, or at least the majority of it. So we can
For
move
right
them up
now,
to
until we
expense
get to
lines.
that point, and then the hope is we're going to get to a point where we're just putting a steady, say $30,000 in every year,
Gotcha. Okay.
just for regular maintenance and repairs as they come up. But yes, but I'm trying to get to a point where, okay, I've addressed all of these needs and problems here, which we're going to be relatively close after next year.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
Yes.
Quick question. It was the question mark on the gross capital cost.
That's exactly what we were just talking about. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, sorry.
So
No, that's
as-
fine, Robin. Okay.
yeah,
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
we're
Thank you,
just essentially going to move those appropriations year over year to the expense line for every year. And that will make this jive.
All right, I didn't realize that was one and the same, so.
Thank you, Ryan.
Absolutely. Not a problem. Oh, okay.
Sorry that took so long, Kelly. So in your Parks and Recreation, where are we? There we are. You have the Jones Field Maintenance Improvement Area, right? Parks and Recreation. Your request is $87,000. Can you elaborate? Okay, well, I guess I see it right here. This is the balance, this, see if our balance is around 20,000 and you're looking for 87,000 to do these over this period of time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's an additional 95,000. Which again has to do with the Jones Field and it's,
That is not additional. That was the first request that was submitted, and then a new request was submitted for 87.
Yeah.
The-
That's what marked original.
oh, okay. So which is the one that we're,
The amended.
So,
the amended one?
yes,
So you moved it back to this $40,000. I'm sorry, 87,000.
yes,
Yes.
and we removed two items from
Right.
that. One was trails and one was the footbridge
Okay,
in the effort to be conservative.
that was great. Thank you for
Yes.
looking at that.
Yeah, thanks.
Any questions from the committee? Did we get this green monster fence from the Fenway?
I wish we could. So this would be original Alton Green Monster fence. So
Super. Roger, any questions?
So we just forget this 87,000.
Yeah,
no, the
no,
87 is
no,
correct.
forget the one in back of it, the 90.
87,000, but the other one is old.
The other one was 95,000.
95,000.
Right,
Correct. We took
that one forget about, okay? She,
Yes.
the 95, the 87,000, Kelly made some changes for us. She actually brought her number down.
Right.
And these timeframes are still good for you, 30,000 in 2026?
I think so. They possibly could be pushed back, but I think that we need to at least plan for those items.
Okay,
The Green Monster fence, in my opinion, does need repair.
okay,
Primex, which is our town's insurance company, came in and recommended a chain link fence from the existing playground area to behind one of the fields. So that was new from last year. So last year it wasn't in here, but it is in here this year because it was brought to our attention that it should be covered. It should be included. It should be something that needs to get completed for safety.
And that, how tall does that green mountain fence go? Like how?
Oh, the Green Monster, I'm not 100% positive on that. It's a smaller scale than the original for sure.
Yeah, but it needs to be done because you don't want balls to get, little kids playing on the playground.
Right. It is an attraction for the town. It is something that is special to a lot of people in town and it's important.
Very important.
So,
Safety's first.
right, and the field's called Little Fenway for a
Oh,
reason,
that's so
Yeah.
cute.
because of the Green Monster and the Sitco sign and
Cute.
yes.
any questions from the committee?
At least these dates are all pushed out a little.
Yes,
So it's not all.
right.
Beth, are you okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Patrick,
Yeah, I was just trying to find it in the plan, but
trying to find it.
is this one in the plan already? Sorry.
Gabby, you okay?
Oh, yes. Okay. All right.
Okay,
Glad to see some.
I just wanted to see.
thank you
if
for
that
taking
was
the time to
current.
Oh, you're
to
welcome.
look at it, Kelly. Okay, because I'll tell you, we got our challenges here.
Yes.
Here we go, Jones. So right now you have 20,000 in and okay, we should be able to meet everything that you requested based on okay, cool.
Okay.
Roger, you all okay?
Yeah.
One more time, Patrick, Beth.
Good to go. I just wanted to make sure that it was in the plan
I mean,
Yep.
it's
as amended. That's all.
as amended.
It's in the
Right,
plan as amended, so it's good. Yeah.
Kelly,
All
thank
right,
you very much.
Thank you. If
Okay.
anyone has any questions,
Yeah, I'm
please reach out
sorry
to
for
me.
the delay.
That's
Thank you,
okay.
Kelly.
Don't worry about
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Tim, I'm so. Welcome. So how, so how was your inaugural year, Tim? You know?
Fabulous.
Hey,
Taking friends everywhere I go.
Jeez.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good to see you all again. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing.
Oh, it's a
thank
pleasure.
you for coming. As you can see, we're struggling, okay, with um, we're struggling a little bit and I'm sorry that for the delay. Okay, I know you're.
This is an early
it's a
night for
very
me.
busy time of the year for you and
It's all good.
we don't mean to belabor it. But you, last year when you did come in, it was very helpful for for our group and this makes it even more helpful.
So this is not very different from what you saw last year. Last year, I also spent a fair amount of time that I don't plan to tonight unless you
No.
have questions, talking about enrollment and sort of the strategic approach that the joint
Again,
boards have been taking.
congratulations,
Yeah, well.
getting that through.
How is that going?
So it's going to be a work in progress, and I hope that we communicated well about this along the way. It feels like no matter how many times I say it, for somebody, it still seems like the first time they're hearing it. I mean, no school district in New Hampshire has done exactly what we're trying to do. As you might imagine, some other districts are questioning how the law works and whether or not this can be done. So I know, and the board knew, that we're going to use this year as a learning and growing opportunity. And that's the nicest way to say it. The real goal here is to have a system that works, not just here, but for the state within the next few years. Our local situation is that I projected us to drop below 400 students at the high school, not this school year that's just starting, but the following one. So last year, my projection had been 415 students. We were actually down to 391 when I talked to you here. Might have been 392. It changed partway through the year. This year, the projection that I had was 412, so pretty close to last year. We are up to 410.
Good for us.
And part of that is from some students who have moved into the district. Part of it is through our first efforts at telling people we're more open to not only the concept of open enrollment under RSA 194D, but there are some other laws in New Hampshire that allow us to make agreements with other districts to bring students in and collect some tuition. We've made a couple of those agreements too. So to some degree, just talking about it, letting people know that we have space and teachers who are good and eager, and we think we run a good school and a beautiful facility that I can't believe you built for $20 million, 19 years. It's really, for the price, it's remarkable, especially. It seems to have made some difference. Now, it's a small number and the real power could come in the future And it'll need to, because in 2024-25, I project that we would have 369 students at the high school. So significantly down, under 400. And then it stays that way in that 370 to 80 range for 5 years in a row. So without some kind of intervention, I don't know if you heard, but we had kind of an unpleasant budget development year for the high school last year, because the board didn't want any increase in the budget. With fewer students, the board thought it would be hard to justify a budget increase. So in a year with 8.9% inflation, we almost level funded the operating budget at the high school. That meant position cuts, and that's never pleasant or popular. So we had an unpleasant year. That's just the way that goes. But we did it. If something doesn't happen in the next couple of years with enrollment, and that's, again, I spent a lot of time on it last year, so I'm just trying to sort of give you an update of where we are now. If something doesn't change, and we're running a high school with 300, on average, 75 students in it for the next 4 years, we're going to have a couple more very difficult budget development years. I don't really want to be honest with you. And I'm pretty sure that board members don't want to, that teachers don't want to, and nobody else associated with the schools. It's just very difficult. It's extremely disruptive, and it makes it hard to pay attention to what we should be putting first every day, which is what kids need, what students need. So we're sticking with it. We're making some progress. I have some meetings in Concord tomorrow. I'm going to spend my day over there, and I think we're going to end up doing some work with the legislature to clarify what at least one of these laws means exactly. And if they need to try to amend it, maybe that's the best route. And that's part of what I'm spending my time on this year.
Well, good fortune. Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah, thanks. As far as the capital plans go, we're in a conservative stance because of everything that we just talked about, right? Look, if I can sit here in a couple of years and tell you that the high school is entering its second 20 years, and it's time to start dealing with some systems replacements and things like that, because a lot of mechanical systems, some roofing systems, not that metal roof that you had to put on, that thing's going to last forever. I won't be the one replacing it for you, but we have some flat roofs over there that are going to be 19 years old this year. And that means we're getting close to the end. I don't want to have to talk to you and the Barnstead Capital Planning Committee. I met with them last week. I don't want to have those conversations until we have some revenue stream, right? Such as through some kind of open enrollment or tuition agreement that could help us fund capital improvements and hopefully affect the tax rate by lowering it at the same time. That's really been the board's vision for this entire project. So for now, we're not looking at it. So the high school, I haven't given you a sheet of paper on. I think the only warrant article you are likely to see in Alton from the joint board this year is the one that shows up every year for the athletic fields improvement fund. And that's an annual $30,000 deposit, 15,000 from Alton and 15,000 from Barnstead. And I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that that's not the kind of thing that's going to get you too excited here at this table. What I have put in front of you is the updated Alton Central School plan. Everything shaded in gray. I just left it on there. It's what we did last year. The grant funded pieces, which is third row down, the $318,000 HVAC, building access controls, and unit ventilator replacements. Those things are all in progress and already funded. The HVAC project is funded by a federal grant primarily, and we put a little bit of unencumbered surplus at the end of last year with it to be able to get the job completed. But no additional local tax impact, no warrant article. The building access controls, we spent, I think it was $58,000. The round number here is 60. That work is done. It happened this summer, and it was under a Homeland Security grant, a competitive grant that we were awarded last year. The unit ventilator replacements and flooring repairs, that was not on this list when you saw it last year. And that's because we hadn't had the cold snap last year when I met with you that we had in the winter this year. And we had 4 unit heaters, coils burst at Alton Central School, which resulted in flooding. So this is because of age, they were from the early 1970s. Our insurer, Primex, same insurer you hear talked about with the town, would not pay 100%. They'd pay a percentage due to age depreciation. So this is our share, and the board funded our share again out of unencumbered general fund surplus at the end of last fiscal year. Our fiscal year runs July 1st to June 30th. I'm not sure if that's what you're used to here. So in June, they made that encumbrance. So that's done, or at least funded and being done. The next line is blank, HVAC front hallway, and that's because when we priced the gymnasium and music art hallway room HVAC work, we hoped that the grant money would stretch far enough to allow us to do, when you enter the front of the school and the administrative offices are on your left, there's a hallway that just goes down to the left there. And off that hallway, there are 2 or 3 classrooms on the right and at least 3 classrooms, maybe 4 on the left. We were hoping to do that hall in those rooms. The engineering for that, it wasn't a matter of running a branch off the same system that's going to serve the gymnasium. It actually would have required an additional unit outside. It ended up being too costly, so we dropped it. When we had the coils burst in the unit heaters in our ERC wing, we realized that 4 burst, but 12 existed. So the next line here is new this year. We're not planning to run a warrant article to fund the first year of this, but we've had to make some adjustments to the rest of the plan in order to fund it. We have 8 more of these unit heaters. They're not adequately insulated to the exterior, we learned last year, and they were installed in the early 70s. So it doesn't really make sense to keep crossing our fingers and waiting for the next ones to burst. So provided they last long enough, we're looking at 2 a year over a 4-year period. In today's dollars, we can do that for 40,000 for 2. So what we've put in this plan is 50,000 starting 2 years from now each year, thinking that probably should make sense. Likewise, the ductless split system for the middle school is still sitting out there for the future, but not for this year. The only thing you see under fiscal 24 that I initially recommended to the school board at their last meeting was backup under boiler rooms 2 and 3. And we talked about this last year. We talked about building a fund to replace and repipe the boilers in 2 of our 5 boiler rooms, which is a sequential project. You just finished a boiler room replacement the year I took over at the school. So these would be the next 2 in line to keep moving forward.
Which is now quite a bit of years too.
Yeah, so it's going to cost $500,000 or $600,000 to do that job. And my guess is if it's going to take 4 years to accumulate the funds, it's going to be closer to 6. And that's why it's, a separate warrant article each year for 4 years, just like I think the last time you did this, it was the same approach. The board did get a little bit of public input. And I think when they meet in October, the school board in Alton has a budget workshop. And that's when they decide on the operating budget that they're going to propose. And they talk about warrant articles. They have a little bit of a different cycle, I think, than the rest of the municipality does, which I know can be awkward. I'm sorry about that, but that's when they'll vote to recommend warrant articles. One of the ideas they talked about was maybe reducing the 160 to accumulate funds toward the boiler room replacement, leveling that back out over the next 4 years. And then down lower, you see camera surveillance system for $40,000, maybe moving that up to a warrant article this year, simply because school security is such a priority. So I know board members, it was at the end of their last meeting that they got that input. I know it got them thinking. So I think it's possible that you could see that boiler room replace. I'm very confident you're going to see a request for a warrant article
on the-
to start accumulating funds on the boiler room replacement. But it may not be 160,000. It might be less in order to be able to move up the camera system replacement. And I'm sorry to do this because it feels like there's this or that, or that, or that, depending on what happens. We got a Homeland Security grant last year for $58,000 for an access control system. There's going to be another round of that grant this year. If we can get that grant for the surveillance system, then we won't need this item. You see what happens? So as a result, maybe then they push more of this money, this request back into the boiler room request. That makes sense, I hope.
So Tim.
Yeah. Grants are good.
Once the boilers are done, which we have down here at about 600 grand. Okay, collectively, right? It's gonna end up being a reserve. Way we have it at about $350,000 sitting in reserve. Do you anticipate? And I know this is a crystal ball you're looking out. Is there anything else out there that we need to be really worried about? So that you have the money to utilize just in case?
Yeah, no, I think I understand the question. I think at Alton Central School, it was built in 1956 or 1957, from what I understand. But I'll tell you, I don't know all the history of maintaining that building.
Right.
It's heating and cooling.
It's what?
It's all heating and cooling. For the next decade, I think, 90% of what you're going to hear us talking about, me or whoever, is heating and cooling systems. That building's in pretty good shape. Floors are good, walls are, structurally it's good, the
Structurally, it's-
envelope's solid, no
Right.
roofing issues. I mean, I'm actually impressed it's at an age where school boards like to talk about knocking it down and building a new school. I have told this school board that I'm not having that conversation with them. This building's in too good shape. They've done too good a job. Now, HVAC is expensive. So over time, you've got this sprawling building with a lot of wings and 5 boiler rooms. It's going to add up. But for the next decade, I just don't see a reason not to continue to maintain this building.
Well, mechanical stuff breaks and needs to be replaced. But if the structure is sound, okay, that gives us something to work with. And so that's my question, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you have enough money for the boilers, okay, but not have too much in excess. And this could help us in making a determination, I commend you on the grants and keep it up, please, whatever we can get, whatever we can get from the federal government, I'm sure we paid for somewhere. Okay, I'm sorry, did I say that? I should be reminded that the FBI will be at my home tonight sometime, coming in, but anyways.
You just can't.
Yeah. But if we were to, I think you heard, we have a significant issues to try to deal with. So this is an area that we might be able to do, but we have 5 years to look at, but you're gradually going to do the boilers.
Yeah, we won't do the work until all the money's accumulated. So we'll do the work around fiscal 27. That's the plan anyway.
Okay,
And these warrant articles will build that fund until we have, otherwise we come asking for $600,000. I just don't think that's going to be popular in any community. But that's not an Alton comment. That's a everywhere comment.
But looking at the numbers, in 2025, you will have, if we do what you're requesting, okay, you'll have $600,000.
If we wanted to do that project that year. So if they failed, we'd have the money, but what we'd like to be doing that year in fiscal 25 is we're on our way toward the boiler room replacement, but we can do 2 more of the unit heaters in the ERC wing. We can do the ductless split in a middle school. So there's $80,000 because you're looking at the bottom, right? Across the bottom.
I'm looking at our sheet.
Oh,
that
at your
you don't
sheet.
hate.
Oh, I don't,
Okay.
yeah. I'm
Okay, I'm
It
just
essentially, it follows that to some
This is
degree.
very complicated.
It leaves the balance of the
You're
CR.
looking at the balance in the CIP
I'm looking at the
fund.
balance
Okay,
in the
okay.
CPI.
I apologize. I get
Okay.
it. Yep.
And I'm saying to myself, okay.
Right.
He's got enough money in that year. So I'm just saying, let's say that this committee decided not to fund in 24, the 160,000, and we went to 120,000.
Yes.
Okay, and let's say that in 2025, we went to 110,000. I'm
Yep.
using just numbers, okay? We want to make sure that we get you what you need. I don't think it's being unreasonable. I don't think this board would think that it's being unreasonable. Boilers are boilers, okay? One of the questions I have is, do all the boilers have to be done all at once?
No,
No,
but this plan is a phased plan. You did a boiler room 2 years ago.
right,
These are the next 2. We have a total of 5.
okay,
Now, in the process, the reason these 2 are bundled together is because we eliminate one of them. I mean, 5 boiler rooms, that's a little, but it's because it was a small building and then it was added on and added on and added on. You know, and instead of expanding one plant, it just, for whatever reason, then I'm sure it made all the sense in the world at the time, we'll add a plant to go with the new.
okay.
I think the root cause of this discussion is what is a comfortable balance or reserve in the CRF?
So for it's a total coincidence that what we're building toward is a boiler project. The example I like to use when people ask this question about schools is enough to replace the boilers. And the reason I like to say that is that the day the boilers fail in January, you have to replace them,
Yes.
right? So ironically, it's $300,000 to $500,000 so that if your boilers fail, you can, or if, you know, a boiler fails, you can replace a boiler comfortably.
So essentially the $333,000 that'll be left over when the boiler project is complete is like minimum.
Prudent reserve. That's what I think of it as. And I've got another elementary school that has a little more than that. And that's exactly how I've talked to the taxpayers in the CIP committee there about it is, look, you've got a boiler from 1994 and we're planning to replace it in 4 years. But if it doesn't make it 4 years, we can replace it. And that's the value of having that money in that account. If you don't need it, it's wonderful. If you do need it.
Sure. And my only other question is the totals that you have across the bottom here. They don't necessarily match what we have. And we've had this
Okay.
before. So the 160, the 200, 210, 195, 125.
So we tweak this every summer.
Right.
Right. So we met in, well, August 11th, we met and updated this and we push things around, right? Like this year, we added this unit ventilator replacement over 4 years at $50,000. That wasn't there last year because we hadn't had that experience yet where they failed and we learned I don't want to make it sound like we didn't know the building, but I'm relatively new and Sean Asdot's been here 6-7 years and those things are from 1970 and this might happen again. So we want to be prepared. And yes, with $330,000 balance in that fund, if we wanted to deplete that fund, we could go do that entire job right now. But they're working, you know? So it is, I'm not sure there's a right answer and a wrong answer. There's we talk about it and we make a decision answer.
And we have that conversation with every CRF, like as we're marching things out and trying to decide and push and play the shell game, what is the comfortable number? And it varies by the department. But the biggest thing that I'm looking at right now, and I know these numbers change across the bottom, but and forgive me because I think it might be Prospect Mountain. are these numbers real numbers for the CRF? Or is some of this funding, or does some of this funding come from a different source?
No, if it's here, the only things that come from other sources were from fiscal 23. I
there,
grade them out
yep.
and I talked about where that
Okay.
money's coming from.
Okay.
So if we end up finding other funding opportunities, we can either accelerate projects that are on the list or do something that hasn't made this 5-year plan. And the only reason, if something's important enough to do, it should be on the plan. But some grants are like a security grant. I can't replace boilers using a security grant, but I can do surveillance, I can do access control, things like that. So those are the kinds of things that would show up. Now, at the high school, we have a little bit of a different situation. We do know that there are some expenses coming up. The board would like to rebuild the tennis courts, which should be done. They're 20 years old, and I think the low bidder on all of the concrete work sunk everything 2 feet instead of 4. So a lot of the posts have popped, and we don't have great level surfaces anymore. But replacing tennis courts is not an inexpensive proposition. You're talking about grinding everything that's there, really not just resurfacing, but rebuilding. That's not realistically going to happen in the next couple of years. It's just not. We build this athletic field fund, $30,000 a year. You could do that for the next 10 years before you had enough money to think about replacing tennis courts. So something else is going to have to happen before that becomes realistic. And the board knows that, and I know that, but we're marching on now while we try to address those bigger economic issues at the school. The flat roof is going to need to be replaced. I think last year I told you we were hoping to use a federal grant to get that done. And we actually went all the way through the bidding process, and we got a bid that was 6 times the number we had estimated in our capital plan. That's a combination of things. There's no way we were right. I'll admit that. But the cost of construction went absolutely nuts over the last 4 years. And that was a 4 or 5 year old number. Nobody expected it. I mean, I think we had $150,000 in the plan and it came in at 900. That's just crazy. It meant we couldn't do it using that grant. So someday, it hasn't happened yet, that flat roof that's about to enter its 19th year will begin to leak beyond the typical very minor stuff that you can patch and repair. Right now, it's okay. In the next 6 years, that job's going to have to get done. And that's just the reality of flat roofs. And again, at the high school, I'm hoping we bring you the financial solution before we have to have that conversation. That's the best case scenario.
Tim, we have a capital reserve fund at 333,000 right now. You spent 150 in 2003, and we had budgeted 80,000 for you at 413. Do you know what your actual capital reserve fund is right now?
I'd have to check, to be honest, but I can
Okay.
tell you that there's money sitting in the buildings and grounds CRF right now that was raised and appropriated for finishing the cafeteria and kitchen renovation that you heard about, I think from my predecessor more so than me. I kind of came in
Right.
during the end of it.
Right.
So there's money in that fund still to be expended for that purpose.
Okay. If you could get to Jessica, okay, what the actual reserve amount is right now, and also explain that some of that money still is part of the cafeteria, that would be helpful.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Easy.
Any more questions for Tim?
I don't have any questions, but I would just like to raise this group's attention to the fact that the numbers on the total here do not reflect the plan. So they're going to increase.
I understand that, and I want to talk to Jessica about that. These numbers don't reflect what she's got here. Right.
Right. And I just, when we're talking about the, $1.43, this year. When we're talking about the $1.43 appropriation to CIP per thousand this year and the $1.63 next year per thousand, this is going to impact that for sure, even more so than
Yeah.
it already has. Just so we have it in our brain, that's all.
Okay. Tim, thank you very much for coming.
Happy to see you.
Appreciate it. You know, as always, wishing you best of luck.
Thanks.
I'm hoping that we, in your estimation, what would your ideal number be for the high school, you know, all in
Students,
students,
500,
500?
5.
Yeah. Okay.
You
So-
can, you can run an excellent school with 500 students. You can fund it without undue burden on the taxpayers. And if, I mean, you can really do a lot of good things.
Whatever, personally, whatever I could do to help, okay? In attracting more students here, okay, because it is a good school. You have a great facility and you're doing a great job trying to make it, and I hope it becomes a model for the town. I mean, the state. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it
Okay.
can. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right, moving right along. September 21st, is everybody okay with that meeting? For September 21st? You're not gonna be around, Roger? Okay.
I have it on the 20th as well.
We had it written downstairs for the 21st.
Well,
Not
let me just see,
available.
okay. Um,
I'm good at anything, like. When does this happen? 6?
Okay, you cannot do the 21st. No, okay.
No.
21st, no, then we can't do the 21st. Okay, Roger's not gonna be here. Okay, so we need to talk to Jessica about a different date.
Yeah,
Okay.
and she had also brought up the possibility of discussing 2 more meeting dates, one on September 27th and one on October 4th.
How does,
Besides the 21st, this was like additional meetings,
September 22nd, is fine.
20,
September 27th
27th?
and October 4th. She
Pat?
was recommending
Nope,
that
it's
you
okay.
guys shoot for both because she said that it would be easier to cancel a meeting that's not needed than to potentially have to schedule one.
All right,
So,
Pat, you cannot do the 27th, but I have 3 that can, and
Yep.
Roger, you could do the 27th, huh? Oh, September.
Going at the end of the month.
Well, that is the end of the month, September 27th, okay? Are you gonna be around on the 21st?
So I was just gonna say, are we scratching the 20th, 21st?
so should I check with her to see if it can be bumped back to the 20th rather than the 21st?
Yes, let's try the 20th.
Can everybody do the
I can do
20th?
the 20. I can do
Okay,
it.
so I'll check with her about the 20th. See
Right.
if it can be pushed back one day.
Right, one day, and then, Pat, you can't do the 27th?
I'm not gonna be able to do the 27th or the 4th. I'm literally gone that week. So that's okay.
Okay.
I'll catch up.
And
But we're so September 20th, let me get it, so we're doing that data,
Excuse me?
September 20th.
I'm gonna verify with her
Oh, okay.
and we'll send out
I'm
an
not gonna
email.
write it then.
We'll send out an email.
All right.
I'll verify with her tomorrow
Okay.
and make sure that it's okay on the calendar.
let's just go to that October 4th. How does everybody feel about October 4th?
I can do it.
I'm gonna be working. Unfortunately, I can't.
Yeah, you.
Beth,
That's fine.
October 4th?
It is a Wednesday.
Roger should be back from his vacation. Okay,
well deserved.
Let's put October 4th, even if Pat can't make it, let's try for that.
At least 4
Okay.
of you.
Is that, those are just a bad day for you?
That week,
That
it's
week?
just not good. I'm good the 11th, the 18th.
Okay, put down the 11th
Okay.
also, October 11th, and see if that works. Okay, all right,
How would everybody else be on October 11th?
That's good with me. I can't do it.
you can't. Okay, how about October 10th? A Tuesday,
To make it work.
you good?
I
Okay.
think there's a, is there,
Selectmen meeting.
yeah, isn't there a select board meeting?
We might be able to meet in the hiking room.
Oh, wait, but I can't do October. Have another meeting.
October 4th. That's a Wednesday. Okay,
Because so, no October 11th or October 10th.
No.
We're still sticking with,
September 20th, October 4th, and
you said tentatively the 11th, but Beth can't do the 11th.
let's just put down October 11th tentatively. And see what everybody says. I'm sorry?
30 on 4th?
Yep.
At 5:30,
5:30.
I can't,
I'll get you permission to get off. Okay.
Just work here.
Yeah, yeah, work right here. Yeah. Yeah, be here. Okay. Anybody gives you a hard time, you have them talk to me.
well, we
Okay.
got to change the cars. I can't.
Okay, all right. All right, so department heads to be scheduled. Okay. Everybody sees that the October 17th is planning board hearing, and then we'll have to figure out the committee chairs when we meet in October or November. We can do that at the next meeting. Department heads to be scheduled for these timeframes, DPW, fire. Those will be the most important ones. And of course, IT is always important.
That there were some scheduled for September 21st, so I think that if it gets bumped back to the 20th, we'll just have to see if some of the that
Okay,
are gonna be meeting schedule as well.
okay,
You know,
all right.
as far as like, are we supposed to, he didn't say anything about the elevator, Ryan.
I didn't hear him say anything.
Did he talk about the elevator at all? I'm hearing.
We don't have
that it's
minutes,
coming
do we?
soon.
We have minutes that were sent to us.
Which means it's probably not on our radar.
It's the dates are gonna- You did, commence, it's the one.
Okay, so guys,
Did it, he gave 4 walls, so that we got it renovated. One of it's gone.
Okay.
Just to tell you.
we have no minute. Is there any further discussion about anything? And we have no minutes at this point.
Yeah, so we had kind of and we probably should have had asked Ryan about that before he left. What is the plan for next year? We had a lot of talk of whether or not we were going to suggest reductions in CIP to cover these recruitment and retention components, and then there was some talks about tax rate or taxable properties and the tax base increasing, and
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fairly large deciding factor of how we move this plan
Right.
forward, at least this year.
So I will,
Posed with that. Expected 23 million.
about 23 million was expected to be the new increase for this coming year. How that
23 million Income,
increase?
income.
I don't think it'll be income. I think it was 27,000 or 20 something million of new taxable
It's
property.
23 million of new valuation,
So that means
Roger.
it would be
of new valuation, not $23 million. Okay,
times 11.
you know, if, yeah, it's not close. But it's, I will request that number again for the next meeting.
Just so that way we know
Yeah.
the direction that we want to move in, because if the direction is that we need to come up with $600,000 in cuts, then
Okay.
that's
All right.
substantial.
Public input.
Public doesn't fall on his face.
Come right up, sir.
Headed your way.
Come on.
I'm Dick Shea. Um, First, speaking as a member of the public, I hope you will support the school plan. I have to tell you, I started to go to school board meetings, and the first one I went to, I got completely lost in that building, but it gave me a chance to tour it, and it's in incredible shape. It really is. So the funds that they're asking to maintain it, I think is an investment that is wise for the town to make. Now, I'm new to Alton government as a Board of Selectmen member starting this year. And I hear the frustration of putting together an incredible 5-year plan with all kinds of charts and graphs and calculations, and then seeing it blown up and hacked up. And I hope that you people will continue to put forth that effort. I can't speak for the other members of the Board of Selectmen, but I can tell you that I value that kind of background. Unless you're Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, there's no way that you can just sit down by yourself and crank out all those numbers and have confidence in them. So the efforts that you put in, while they may end up not coming out quite the way you expected, and particularly more so with 9% inflation, which nobody in their wildest dreams would have ever planned on 2 or 3 years ago. Those efforts can sometimes seem to be frustrated, but I hope that you will continue. And I'm pretty sure I can speak for the whole Board of Selectmen when I say that we might not agree with everything, and we might go off drifting some silly procedure that you didn't plan on and don't understand. At least I will try to communicate and keep track of your meetings and express my appreciation that you're putting forth an effort for the town. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
If you could relate to the board, again, our request that they talk to the department heads, and anything that they're looking to that's not on the plan, that's new, we'd like to see the board give their stamp of approval ahead of time. It would be very helpful for us to have that information as we're trying to advise the board, and we thank you for your service too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Roger.
That stupid mower. Now, if they were out mowing, Morses, they have mowers, they'll be happy to. Sounds to me like he's gonna go out and just buy that. He's got no way to drive trucks, but he just buy that. Let's start paying for it. $87,000. But that's what's the stupid paying for the parking. Who's running the show down there at the highway department? I mean,
I think we're very fortunate with the highway department to have Scott Kinman. He's really quite extraordinary. Well, we may not be able to do that for sure. And I don't know the pros and cons of the mower need. I do know that probably his biggest problem as far as personnel retention and being able to add people and replace those we've lost has to do with that CDL license. Anybody that's got that in his back pocket, and probably a mower operator does not, can almost write his own ticket. There are paving companies that are offering $15,000 and $20,000 sign-on bonuses, and they're swiping our guys.
And they are.
It's really, but we certainly, I promise you, I'll look into the mower.
that's okay. So pay our guys, take that $87,000 and give it to the guys that retain them, give them the $15,000.
That'd be good, that'd be cool.
Instead of buying another thing that just,
Yeah, this,
need a man
it's,
to run.
we're in a definite, difficult situation. And when I first heard of the proposal to increase staff salaries, I thought it was kind of overkill on short notice. But then when I got looking at the people that we'd lost and the universal reason that they left all had to do with compensation, and somebody else offered them not slightly more money, but a ton of more money. And so we had two choices. We either start to pay more or just stand there and watch everybody drift out the door on us. And you don't quite notice it as much in the summer. Come the winter, when those 3 or 4 trucks are sitting there, then none of us are going to get out of our driveways. Then it'll be
Not gonna
really
drive it.
exciting. Right.
Again,
So it's an interesting year for sure. And I don't know what Beth got me into here, but she did. And here we are.
thank you. Anything else? I'll take a motion for adjournment. Second, all in favor? Aye. Great. Oof. Thank you, everyone.
What you're saying, Gabby, is they been in the bathroom downstairs and have to get rid of it, put an elevator in.
Yeah, get rid of
That's
it
the
now.
kind of money